Today I want to talk about strength training and mental health. Now, this is going to be a long one because I'm going to cover a little bit about many of the different ways that strength training can boost your mental health and your mental well-being, and there's a lot of different ways. So here's what I'll cover in this video. How strength training changes your brain, so what's happening in your brain itself that boosts your mood and makes you feel good, and how strength training changes your mind. And what I mean by changing your mind is how it helps you think about yourself differently and how it makes you feel confident and resilient. So before I get into it, I just want you to know that this is not just my opinion. There's tons of research on this. For exercise in general, there are literally hundreds of research studies showing that many different types of exercise, including cardio, yoga, tai chi, dancing, and strength training, can be as effective for decreasing depression and anxiety as what we usually consider to be gold standard treatments like medications or therapy. Now, specifically, these studies have found that exercise improves mood and increases energy levels and boosts confidence and increases feelings of happiness and optimism. Now, since basically all types of exercise can be good for mental health, if there's a type of exercise other than strength training that you like and that makes you feel good, definitely please do that. Now, for strength training specifically, there's less research, mostly because other types of exercise like cardio are easier to study, and also because we're kind of just recently, or relatively recently, starting to realize that strength training is not just for bodybuilders and athletes. It's good for everyone. But there is still research. There's currently dozens of research studies specifically showing that strength training can improve mental health. I can tell you from my own experience as someone with depression and anxiety that out of all the things I've tried to improve my mental health, and I've tried a lot, strength training and running are what have really allowed me to thrive despite having these conditions. And as much as I love running, I actually think there's something very special about strength training in particular, which is why I specialize in strength training for mental health. Okay, let's talk about how strength training changes your brain. So you've probably heard that being active releases endorphins in your brain, and that's why exercise makes you feel good. Well, that's true, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. So exercise releases a whole bunch of different substances in both your body and in your brain. So when your muscles contract, they release all kinds of chemicals. And some of those are little proteins called myokines, which are released by your muscles, and then they go into your bloodstream and they travel around your body. And some of them go and talk to different organs and help them to work better, and some of them travel up to your brain and have really powerful effects there. In fact, scientists who study those molecules have started calling them hope molecules because of the way they can make you feel more joy and happiness and optimism and connection. And then there are neurotransmitters. So in your brain, exercise releases things like dopamine and norepinephrine and GABA and serotonin. Some of those neurotransmitters are the same ones that are targeted by antidepressant and anti-anxiety medications. So for example, probably the most well-known type of antidepressants are called SSRIs. So that's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Those change the concentrations of serotonin in your brain, which is also what strength training does, just in a different way. And then we have our endorphins, which are natural painkillers. But there are also endocannabinoids, which is natural CBD made by your brain. So those two substances, endorphins and endocannabinoids, explain why exercise can have a pain-relieving and a calming effect. And then there's also a set of molecules called neurotrophic factors that are released during exercise. So those are proteins that help protect and grow brain cells. And one of those in particular, which is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, has been called Miracle-Gro for your brain. So strength training releases BDNF, which goes to work repairing damaged brain cells and building new ones. And some antidepressant medications also work by releasing BDNF. Now, I know that was a lot, and I'm telling you all of this not because you need to remember what all those chemicals are or what they do, But I think it's really important to understand that there's a lot more going on than just endorphins. Because sometimes I'll talk to people about exercise and mental health, and they're like, oh, yeah, endorphins, I know, like, whatever, and they kind of disregard it, right? It seems too simple. So I want you to know how incredibly powerful strength training actually is for your brain, so you understand just what an amazing thing you're doing for yourself every time you do a workout. Now, long term, exercise actually changes the structure and connections in your brain. So they've found that certain structures in your brain actually get bigger with exercise. So there's one part of the brain that's been studied a lot. It's called the hippocampus, which is involved in memory and learning. And as we age, most people lose brain volume in their hippocampus. It gets smaller. But people who do a lot of exercise are less likely to lose brain mass in that area. Now, studies have also found that exercise increases the connections between different brain areas of the brain, which makes your whole brain work better, right? So there are more neural connections, so information travels around your brain better, and there are more vascular connections, which means there's more blood flow between different brain areas. And I spoke about all those good chemicals, right? Those hope molecules and neurotransmitters and endocannabinoids, and all of those things that are basically giving your brain a bubble bath of happy chemicals every time you exercise. Well, over time, your brain actually starts to build more receptors for those molecules, so you start to feel their effects more and more. So all of that was how exercise changes your brain. And again, those effects in your brain are not specific to strength training. They happen during strength training, but also during other types of exercise. But exercise also changes your mind. And this is, I think, where strength training really shines and can be even more effective than other types of exercise for some people. I'm one of those people, for example. So I'm going to start with how strength training helps you get back in touch with your body. This is a big benefit and one that I hear from people all the time. So your body is constantly sending you signals, right? It's actually a skill to be able to listen to and understand those signals. And there's a name for that skill. It's called interoception. A lot of people have lost touch with their body's signals. Their interoception is not very good. And I mean, it's understandable, right? We're just constantly distracted, or we kind of train ourselves over time to ignore the signals our bodies are sending us. And that's a problem for a lot of different aspects of our lives. So if you've lost touch with your true hunger and fullness signals, you might overeat. If you are so used to pushing through your natural sleepiness signals, then you might miss out on sleep. And that obviously has some pretty serious effects. And it's a problem with mental health too. So your body is sending you signals when you're getting anxious or stressed or depressed. So you might get muscle tension, especially like up in your neck and back and shoulders. You might feel nauseous or drained. You might feel jittery. But again, a lot of us are so used to ignoring these signals that we don't really notice them. Now, on the other hand, sometimes in the case of anxiety or depression or neural circuit symptoms like chronic dizziness or pain, your body is actually sending too many signals or signals that aren't really accurate. So your nervous system might be running in overdrive and reacting to things that don't really need a reaction. And strength training can help with both of those things, right? So it can help you start listening again. And actually, it kind of forces you to start listening to your body again. It turns up the volume on a lot of your body sensations, so it's easier to feel them. And then during a workout, you don't really have a choice but to pay attention to what your body is doing and how it's moving and how it's feeling. And so with practice, you learn to feel and activate the right muscles in each exercise, and you get better at noticing subtle changes in your heart rate and your breathing. That's training interoception. That's getting you back in touch with your body. Now, strength training also over time trains your nervous system and your stress response systems to work more efficiently so they don't have to overreact anymore. Now, being really aware of your body and how it's feeling, it's kind of a superpower, right? It gives you the opportunity to sense when you're starting to get anxious or angry or depressed or stressed because your body is telling you about those things. And if you're tuned in, you can intervene and do something about it before it becomes a problem, right? You can almost like read the future and do something about it before it happens. So you can practice some deep breathing, or you could reframe the situation, or you could do something physical to kind of discharge those feelings. So next, strength training helps you get comfortable with discomfort. Again, another incredibly important one that I work with clients on all the time. So let's say you're out in the real world and suddenly you feel anxious, right? Your heart starts pounding. Or maybe you have depression and you wake up one day and you feel really drained. Or maybe you feel some dizziness symptoms, right? When that kind of thing happens seemingly out of nowhere, it can be really scary, right? Because you don't always know why those things are happening and if you're going to be okay. And you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know whether you'll be able to handle the situation. Right? There's uncertainty and there's discomfort, and that's a really hard thing to deal with. And a lot of people avoid discomfort, which again, it's understandable. It's really hard to face difficult situations and get out of your comfort zone, like whether you're dealing with a mental health issue or not. But especially with something like depression or anxiety, there's almost this reflex to avoid being uncomfortable. But when you avoid hard things, your world shrinks. Right? You miss out on opportunities and experiences, and you start to see yourself as someone who's kind of fragile, who's not strong or not capable. And those things are not necessarily true, right? Or at least they don't have to be. So if you want to thrive and achieve your full potential, you have to be willing to deal with discomfort. And this is one of the biggest mental health benefits of strength training. It gives you opportunities to practice the skill, and it is a skill, of pushing through discomfort in a safe and controlled environment, right? Because in the gym, you often get feelings that are very similar to the physical sensations of anxiety or depression, right? Your heart is pounding, you feel tired, you feel muscle tension, but in the gym, you know exactly why that's happening. You know it's because you're lifting weights, and you have control, right? You can stop and rest whenever you want. So when you choose to feel those uncomfortable feelings in the gym and do another repetition anyway, you're building this skill of getting comfortable with discomfort, of being able to feel uncomfortable and do the thing anyway. And this is one of the reasons why I think strength training has an advantage over other types of exercise. Because strength training is inherently like intermittent, right? And what I mean by that is you do a short burst of hard effort and then you get a break in between. So the discomfort only lasts a few seconds at a time, which makes it more manageable. And you get lots of little practice sessions within each workout to be able to feel some discomfort, but then kind of back off and rest and feel better, right? That's different than, let's say, cardio, for example, where it's basically like one long discomfort session. There's benefit to that too, but I think strength training really has an advantage here. So over time, you basically get used to feeling uncomfortable, right? It doesn't feel so frightening and out of control anymore. You learn that you're strong and resilient enough to face discomfort and come out the other side, right? You have the ability to kind of sit with your symptoms and not fight them, and that gives you back some power and control. And you can also choose to kind of lean into discomfort and use it to grow and improve. And that skill transfers over into every other part of your life. So where you might previously have let your anxiety or your self-doubt get the better of you, once you've been into strength training for a while, you might just do the thing anyway, right? And then your world starts to expand again. Another mental health benefit of strength training is that it provides something called mastery experiences, which are opportunities to achieve small goals or build small skills. Now, you might think that strength training only builds physical skills, right? But that's actually not true. You'd be wrong there. It also builds the mental skills that can help you flourish and thrive no matter what else is going on in your life. Because strength training teaches you how to be patient and persistent and resilient, right? It gives you practice at challenging yourself and overcoming those challenges, and that makes you feel courageous and confident. And this is so important, I think, because In our normal lives, we don't get that many chances to test ourselves and pass that test, right? We kind of get into our routines and stay there. At least I know that that's been something that's happened to me in the past. But in the gym, you do get those opportunities, right? You get to have these incredible experiences where you lift a weight that was too heavy for you just a few workouts ago, and you get to see and feel that you're now stronger, right? Or you're in the middle of a set and it starts to feel really difficult, and you get to make the choice to keep pushing anyway, and a few seconds later, you successfully finish that exercise, right? It's so awesome. You get this tangible evidence and this feeling, and not just knowledge, but feeling that you're strong and capable of improvement. And again, I think this is something that strength training in particular is really good for. So in a strength training workout, you might do, let's say, 6 exercises, right? And you might do 3 sets of each exercise. So that's 18 sets. That's right, 18 opportunities in each workout to feel a little more capable, to set yourself a small goal or a small challenge and achieve it. And then once you start to feel and experience these mastery experiences, it can really open your eyes to the other mastery experiences that you have access to all the time. So every small challenge you set yourself is an opportunity to get a little better, right? To achieve something. Whether it's staying positive in the face of anxiety or pain, or getting a little better at a small life skill, right? You can start to notice and appreciate those small wins more. And strength training really gives you the opportunities to do that and the practice that helps you do that. And challenging negative thought patterns and changing your self-identity. So everything I've said so far about strength training and how it changes your mind, it really comes down to this, right? Over time, your experiences of pushing yourself through discomfort and rising to challenges starts to become integrated into your sense of who you are, into your self-identity. So a self-identity is your idea about who you are and what you're capable of. And if you're prone to mental health struggles, let's go back to that one. If you're prone to mental health struggles, there are, some common, maybe negative thought patterns that might sound familiar to you, right? So maybe you think of yourself as a person who never follows through and isn't capable of achieving big things. Or you might see yourself as someone who shrinks away from hard situations or who gets easily discouraged or overwhelmed. Right? You might have a habit of taking things personally, of ruminating on the past or worrying about the future, and you might feel like you're not able to change those habits. And often these ideas and thought patterns are really deeply ingrained, right? Those narratives feel true, but they're really not, right? Thoughts and feelings are just thoughts and feelings. They're not reality. They're just how you perceive reality. So the question is, how do you change those perceptions? Well, you can try to talk yourself out of those feelings all you want, right? But in my experience, and I tried that for a very long time, it just doesn't work very well, right? I've tried, and I've come to realize that you can't always use your mind to change your mind, but you can use your body to change your mind, because it's taking action that can truly change your thought patterns and your self-concept. And this is where strength training comes in. So in the gym, you can prove to yourself, right, through your actions, that you are becoming the kind of person you want to be. Right? You can practice being resilient during your workouts in these small and consistent ways. And over time, you start to see yourself as a resilient person. So you can experience this like pride and confidence that comes from being physically strong. Oops, why do I keep doing that? There we go. And over time, you start to see yourself as someone who's not just physically, but also emotionally strong, right? You can challenge some of your negative thoughts and feelings about yourself in your workouts. And over time, you start to notice that those old kind of knee-jerk reactions that you had to life situations, they just don't happen so much anymore. Now, I know that mental health is an individual thing. And there's a lot of factors that can affect your mental health, right? So I just want to speak for myself here. The way strength training has changed my brain and my mind, right? Making me feel confident in myself and my abilities, teaching me how to do hard things, changing the way I see myself, and helping me to rewire my brain and my nervous system so I don't react to things the same way as I used to. But like as I used to before I started strength training, excuse me. It may have saved my life, right? It definitely changed my life. So I hope for anyone who's watching this that you also get to experience how powerful strength training can be for your physical health and for your mental health.